Silence, only the heartbeat. The world, shrouded in shadows, awaits a sound, a sign, a promise that transforms chaos into hope. A voice whispers in the wind, echoing through the streets of Jerusalem, the valleys of Galilee, the weary souls. Something is coming, something beyond human understanding. Time seems suspended. A faint light breaks the horizon, slowly dissolving the veil of night. And in that moment, all eyes turn to the invisible. All ears grope in the darkness, awaiting the impossible. Luke, the physician, the curious, the lover of truth, records every detail. His hands tremble as they touch the papyrus, but his gaze remains fixed on the mission, to narrate the story that will change the destiny of humanity. He takes a deep breath, closes his eyes, and lets memory carry him to the beginning of it all. To the time when hope was merely a murmur among women of faith, simple men, children gazing at the stars, seeking signs. The scene unfolds, a forgotten village, stone houses, the scent of freshly baked bread, the hum of ordinary life spanning generations. But on that night, nothing was ordinary. Mary, young, silent, with a profound gaze, sits by the window contemplating the star-speckled sky. Her heart beats faster, as if anticipating the inexplicable. A gentle breeze enters, bringing with it something not of this world. A blue glow, intense and warm, fills the room. And then he appears, an angel enveloped in light, his voice like music and thunder at once. "Rejoice, Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you." Time stops. Fear invades, but it is overcome by a peace that floods every cell of her body. She listens, hesitates, surrenders. "Behold the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be done to me according to your word." The angel smiles, vanishes, and silence returns, a silence pregnant with eternity. Luke observes, records, feels every nuance of that scene. He knows nothing will be the same after this. The streets of Nazareth buzz with rumors, but no one understands what is happening there. Joseph, a just man, wrestles with his own ghosts, the fear of scandal, the weight of the unknown. In sleepless nights, he gazes at Mary sleeping, her hand over her still discreet womb, and thinks, "How can I protect what I do not understand?" The dream, however, comes as an answer. An angel speaks to him. "Do not fear to take Mary. What is conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit." Joseph awakens sweating, but with a new certainty. It is time to trust. The scene shifts and the narrative quickens. The Roman Empire, ruthless, demands a census, forced journey, dusty road, biting cold. Mary and Joseph walk among strangers, their eyes weary but their hope intact. In Bethlehem, doors close, voices deny shelter. Time presses, the womb contracts, pain heralds the miracle. In a humble stable, surrounded by straw and animals, the impossible is born. The cry of a baby shatters the cosmic silence. The Messiah has arrived, not as a feared king, but as a vulnerable child. The heavens open. Shepherds watching their flocks are bathed in supernatural light. Fear paralyzes, but a celestial voice dispels all terror. "Do not be afraid. Behold, I bring you good news of great joy." The angels sing. The world will never be the same. The shepherds run, tears streaming down their dirt-streaked faces, knees to the ground before the child wrapped in cloths. In Mary's gaze, an entire universe of questions and promises. She does not understand everything, but she feels eternity in her arms. Time moves forward, blending tenderness and threat. Herod, the crazed king, hears rumors of a new king. Fear turns to hatred. The blood of the innocents cries out to heaven. But Joseph, warned in a dream, flees to Egypt with Mary and the child. In exile, silence is a companion, but the promise remains alive. Luke describes the flight in detail. Footprints in the sand, wary glances in foreign cities, exhaustion overcome by hope. Years later, back in Nazareth, Jesus grows in wisdom and grace, sparking fascination and unease. Luke spares no detail about the boy's youth. Jesus' perceptive gaze, his sharp questions, his relentless pursuit of the sacred amid the ordinary. At 12, lost and found in the temple, he debates with scholars, challenges traditions, foreshadows a destiny no one dares imagine. Mary watches from afar, her heart torn between pride and fear. Joseph, silent, feels an invisible weight, but senses he stands before something greater than all of Israel's dreams. The narrative leaps, bringing the desert as its stage. John the Baptist emerges as a solitary voice, crying out among the dunes, "Prepare the way of the Lord." The people, thirsty for meaning, walk miles, seeking in the waters of the Jordan a purification that goes beyond the body, reaching the soul. John is harsh, his voice stone and fire, but when he sees Jesus approaching, his gaze melts into reverence. Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. The baptism occurs under a sky torn by light. A dove descends, a voice echoes, "You are my beloved Son, in you I am well pleased." And in that moment, the entire universe seems to hold its breath. Jesus, led by the Spirit, faces the desert. 40 days of solitude, hunger, thirst, temptation. Satan approaches, whispers promises, offers glory and power. Jesus' gaze, however, does not waver. The word becomes a shield. Man shall not live by bread alone. Silence defeats deception. The desert bows before the truth. When Jesus returns, something has changed. His presence makes time slow. He walks among fishermen, rough men, weary eyes. "Follow me," he says, and Peter drops his nets. John abandons his boat. Matthew closes his tax ledger. One by one, hearts are won, not by force, but by the promise of something new. The world watches, skeptical and fascinated. Miracles happen. The blind see, the lame walk, lepers are touched, the dead return to life. But more than that, words never heard before resonate in hearts. Forgiveness, mercy, hope. The crowds grow. The scorching sun of the east does not stop men, women, and children from following the trail of that man from Nazareth. Pharisees are unsettled, priests conspire, Romans observe. Jesus seeks no power, but shares bread. He demands no worship, but offers embrace. He does not condemn, but invites to the table. The scandal is silent and devastating. The disciples, captivated, struggle to understand. "Who is this that even the wind and sea obey him?" whispered questions in sleepless nights. Jesus smiles, but his eyes carry an ancient weight, as if he already sees the cross in the distance. He tells parables, the Good Samaritan, the prodigal son, the lost sheep. Each story is a mirror, an invitation to conversion. Time tightens, tension mounts. At every corner, a new challenge, a doubt, a miracle, a confrontation. Love mingles with fear, faith with uncertainty, and above all the question lingers, where does this path lead? Night falls over Galilee, cloaked in gentle mist. The lake, serene, reflects the twinkling stars in the firmament. Jesus walks along the shore, slow steps, eyes immersed in eternity. Fishermen converse in murmurs, campfires crackle, and the smell of roasted fish blends with the fresh air. In a distant tent, Peter discusses quietly with John, restless. "Did you see him today? He touched that leper as if he had no fear. No one does that." John, silent, merely watches the master from afar, feeling the pull of an invisible call. Jesus approaches, calm smile, serene voice. "The kingdom is among you." Days turn into weeks. Crowds swell like an unstoppable wave. Men from every village run to hear a voice unlike anything they've known. Women bring sick children. The elderly are carried on makeshift stretchers. The scene is one of hunger and despair, but also of blazing faith. A group of men approaches, carrying a paralytic on a mat. The house where Jesus speaks is packed, no entry possible. Without hesitation, they climb the roof, remove tiles, lower their friend to the feet of the master. Jesus smiles, eyes welling. Seeing their faith, he says to the paralytic, "Rise and walk." The impossible happens before all. Shouts, tears, knees to the ground. The rumor spreads like wildfire. With each miracle, the circle of hope expands, but the shadows grow too. Pharisees watch from a distance, whispering, seeking something to use against him. Jesus, however, does not hide. He enters the homes of tax collectors, sits at the table with sinners, speaks to prostitutes as one who sees beyond shame. He defies logic, dismantles prejudices, breaks invisible walls. Zacchaeus, the tax collector, hides among the branches of a fig tree to see the one everyone speaks of. Jesus stops, looks up and says, "Come down quickly, for today I must stay at your house." The scandal is total. At that dinner, laughter and tears mingle. Zacchaeus, touched by an inexplicable grace, returns all he stole and shares his wealth with the poor. The impossible repeats now in the heart of a man marked by guilt. One night, by the lake, Jesus asks for silence. Attentive eyes, racing hearts. He speaks in parables, stories that echo like riddles in the listeners' minds. A sower, a seed, a fertile field, and another stony. Peter scratches his head. Mary Magdalene closes her eyes, trying to absorb it all. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. A distant thunder, the night advancing, an air of expectation. No one knows exactly what is to come, but all feel something immense is about to happen. On the road to Jerusalem, tension grows. Jesus anticipates persecution and rejection. The disciples waver but follow, driven by a force they do not understand. Martha and Mary in Bethany welcome the Master. Lazarus, their brother, falls ill and dies. Grief weighs on the house like fog. Days later, Jesus arrives. Martha runs to meet him, tears and pain. "If you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus looks into her eyes, deep compassion. "Your brother will rise again." At the tomb, the impossible rises once more. "Lazarus, come out!" A body wrapped in bandages emerges from the shadow. Shouts, tears, worship. The rumor becomes an avalanche. The religious authorities, now gripped by fear, decide something must be done. Conspiracies form in the shadows of the temples. In secret, coins clink, deals are sealed. Judas, consumed by doubts and ambitions, approaches the priests. His hand trembles, his voice falters, but the decision is made. The time of Passover arrives. Jerusalem buzzes. Crowded streets, aromas of spices, the murmur of eager voices. Jesus enters riding a donkey, the crowd casting cloaks and branches on the ground. "Hosanna to the Son of David." The people rejoice, but there is unease in the Master's gaze. He sees beyond the clamor, glimpses the abyss approaching. In the temple, he confronts the merchants, overturns tables, frees doves. "My house shall be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves." His voice echoes among ancient columns, dust suspended in the air. Children surround him, small hands clutching his tunic. In their eyes he finds true faith. The following days he teaches in the temple. Scholars try to trap him. He responds with wisdom that confounds even the most experienced. At dusk, as the sun sets, he sits on the Mount of Olives, gazing at Jerusalem bathed in gold. Silent tears stream down his face. "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how often I wanted to gather you as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you would not. The destiny is set." The Last Supper arrives like a whisper. A simple room, a modest table, bread and wine shared among friends and betrayers. Jesus, looking at each one, speaks of a new covenant, of a kingdom not of this world. "This is my body given for you. This is the cup of the new covenant." Peter, restless, swears loyalty unto death. Judas lowers his eyes, hand hiding a tremor. Jesus washes the disciples' feet, an act of incomprehensible humility. All feel that this night is different, that an undeniable weight hangs in the air. After the supper, the group heads to Gethsemane. Dark garden, ancient olive trees, the damp scent of earth. Jesus steps away, falls to his knees, sweat like drops of blood. Voice choked, he cries out to the Father, "If possible, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." The disciples sleep, overcome by exhaustion. Silence is broken by hurried steps. Spears glint, torches cut through the night. Judas approaches, a cold kiss on the master's cheek. Guards seize him, disciples flee. Peter tries to resist, sword in hand, but Jesus stops the violence. He who lives by the sword will die by the sword. The night is long and cruel. Jesus, bound, is taken to the priests. Questions, insults, slaps. Peter, at a distance, watches. He denies knowing the master once, twice, 3 times. A rooster crows. Their eyes meet. Peter collapses in tears, shame burning in his chest. Jesus is taken to Pilate. The governor, skeptical and uneasy, tries to avoid sentencing. "I find no fault in this man." But the crowd, incited by the priests, shouts, "Crucify him!" Pilate washes his hands, a symbol of cowardice and powerlessness. Jesus is scourged, crowned with thorns, mocked by soldiers. The weight of the cross falls on his wounded shoulders. He walks the narrow streets, stumbling, compassion and scorn mingling in the gazes along the way. Women weep, children watch in silence. Atop Golgotha, his body is stretched out, nails pierce flesh and wood. The sky darkens, thunder in the distance. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." The cry echoes through the centuries. The thief beside him recognizes the condemned's innocence. "Remember me when you enter your kingdom." Jesus promises, "Today you will be with me in paradise." The final breath. Absolute silence. The temple veil tears. Soldiers tremble. A centurion on his knees mutters, "Truly this was the Son of God." 3 days. The city plunged in mourning. Hope lurking in the shadows. Voices silenced, smiles vanished. The disciples, locked away, are haunted by fear and regret. Magdalene, consumed by longing and unwavering faith, walks silently in the cold dawn, carrying perfumes to anoint a body that should no longer belong to this world. The garden still sleeps, dew glistening on the stones. Approaching the tomb, her heart races. Something is different. The stone, massive and heavy, has been rolled away. The tomb is empty. The scent of damp earth mingles with the fragrance of ointments, and the silence is broken by an ethereal voice. "Why do you seek the living among the dead?" An angel, radiant in the dim light, smiles. Magdalene falters, tears streaming down her face. She does not understand, but she feels. She runs, stumbling over stones, to tell the others. Peter and John race in desperation, barefoot, breathless. The empty tomb confronts them like an unanswered mystery. The bandages, neatly folded, rest where there was only pain before. A strange wind sweeps through the garden. Tears of disbelief mingle with a burgeoning spark of hope. They dare not yet believe, but something has changed forever. Days pass. Disciples retreat, whisper, doubt. On the road to Emmaus, 2 men walk, shoulders slumped, eyes downcast. They speak of sorrow, loss, a stolen future. A stranger approaches, discreet. "What are you discussing along the way?" They recount the tragedy, unaware they speak to the risen one himself. The stranger expounds the scriptures, reveals hidden meanings. Their hearts burn, but they only recognize the Master at the breaking of the bread. The moment their eyes open, he vanishes. They run back to Jerusalem, throats hoarse, proclaiming the impossible. He is alive. In the upper room, doors locked, fear still present, but hope grows like light in a dark cave. Suddenly, a gentle breeze, a different fragrance in the air. Jesus appears among them. He is no ghost, no memory. It is he, body and spirit. Wounds still open, eyes full of tenderness. "Peace be with you." Panic dissolves into tears and laughter. Thomas, reluctant, touches the wounds, feels the flesh, falls to his knees. "My Lord and my God." The days that follow are of awe and learning. Jesus walks among them, teaches, forgives, breaks bread, rekindles dreams. The impossible is no longer a distant hope, but a tangible reality. But before departing, he gathers them on the mount under a blue sky and promises in the wind, "Stay in Jerusalem until you are clothed with power from on high." He raises his hands, blesses them. A flash, an inexplicable presence. Jesus is taken, vanishing among the clouds. Eyes well with tears, hearts tighten, but no one feels alone. Something new begins there, amid tears and promises. Peter, once a coward, now rises with boldness. Repent and receive the gift of the Spirit. Thousands join, share bread, sell their possessions, care for one another like blood siblings. Luke, attentive to every detail, narrates not only facts, but feelings. The disbelief of the leaders, the courage of the apostles, the faith of the women, the transformation of the persecuted. He captures Paul's tears, Barnabas's embrace, Stephen's smile before the stones. The gospel message explodes to the four corners of the known world. Prisons do not halt hope, threats do not extinguish the light. Ordinary men and women, marked by flaws, now shine like living torches, drawing crowds through example and unconditional love. Meanwhile, Rome, with all its power, watches in bewilderment. Something new emerges among slaves and patricians, poor and rich, learned and illiterate. Luke's words traverse markets, squares, temples. Jesus is not merely an ancient name, but a living presence, capable of crossing centuries and hearts. Letters circulate, the gospel spreads, the story becomes eternal. The wind blows differently in the streets of Jerusalem. Children play under the sun, elders tell stories in the shade of olive trees. But now, hope has a name and a face. It is no longer a secret, no myth. It is certainty. God walked among men, wept, smiled, died, and rose again. And every word, every gesture echoes forever. Luke, now elderly, sits at the table, papyrus before him, candlelight flickering. He closes his eyes, grateful for witnessing the impossible, for seeing the beginning of it all. One last look back. The world has changed. The impossible happened. And the story continues, now written in every heart willing to believe. The flickering flame of the candle, the scent of parchment, the late night. Luke feels the weight of time as he revisits every memory, every tear, every laugh of faith etched in his mind. The scratch of the quill on papyrus is the only sound as he narrates the life that sprang from the tomb, the courage that bloomed from fear, the hope that rose from ruins. He recalls the faces, the crowds that followed Jesus, hungry not only for bread, but for meaning, for redemption. Mary Magdalene's gaze filled with awe and tenderness as she recognized the risen Master. Peter's silence before his first sermon, eyes blazing with fire. The whisper of the first prayers shared in hiding, hands clasped, hearts beating in unison. Time passes, but the flame does not fade. Luke describes in detail the growth of the new community. Open homes, tables laden with shared bread, voices singing hymns even in the face of persecution. Children play around the apostles, listening to stories of miracles and kindness. The sound of laughter mingles with the echo of sermons in the squares, as men and women offer all they have for something they cannot see, but feel more real than the stone ground beneath their feet. The religious leaders, now restless, order arrests, threats, and floggings. Jesus' followers, however, stand firm, their gaze calm and unshakable. They learn from the Master. Victory is born in surrender. Strength flourishes in weakness. Love is more powerful than fear. Luke contemplates Paul, once Saul, relentless persecutor, now transformed by the blinding light of grace. On the road to Damascus, a light knocks him from his horse. A voice calls his name, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" The icy silence, the rough ground, sudden blindness. 3 days of darkness, 3 days of waiting. Then Ananias' visit, the healing touch, the promise of a new path. Paul rises, eyes open, heart changed, from persecutor to proclaimer, from enemy to brother. The gospel spreads like fire through palaces and alleys. Paul, Barnabas, Silas, crossing seas, deserts, walls of hostility. Synagogues buzz with debates, squares fill with listeners, homes welcome crowds. Stones fly, whips crack, but Christ's voice rises above the hatred. My grace is sufficient for you. Luke, the attentive physician, narrates the invisible healings, the hidden miracles. The mother reunited with her lost son, the old man walking again, the widow learning to smile once more. Each face bears battle scars, but also the glow of hope. He recalls Stephen's scandalous forgiveness, stoned under the impassive gaze of the leaders. Lord, do not hold this sin against them. Even at the end, the heavens open. Glory pours forth. Death loses its power. In the intimacy of every home, amid simple dinners and nights of vigil, the gospel flourishes. Bread is broken, wine shared, psalms sung in secret. Children memorize the Master's parables. Elders recall the time when Jesus walked those dusty roads. News arrives from afar. In Rome, Corinth, Ephesus, communities gather in the name of the risen one. Letters pass from hand to hand, instructing, correcting, encouraging. Luke's words blend with those of Peter, John, James, Paul, weaving a tapestry of faith that transcends borders and generations. But not all is light and song. Danger lurks at every corner. Roman guards knock on doors, cold prisons, sleepless nights, lashes that tear skin and soul. Many fall, but none renounce. The name of Jesus becomes a seed. The more they try to stifle it, the more it sprouts, the more it grows. Luke narrates the boldness of those facing tribunals, the serenity of those who forgive, the certainty that nothing can stop the truth. Even in the face of death, there is an inexplicable peace, as if all knew that there, at the edge of suffering, eternity begins. Time moves forward, and testimonies multiply. Widows supported, orphans embraced, the sick visited. No distinction of race, origin, wealth, all become family. Luke smiles as he recounts the baptism of an Ethiopian, the conversion of a jailer in Philippi, the embrace of reconciliation between once divided brothers. For every pain, a fulfilled promise. For every tear, a new song. The old world, marked by walls and divisions, now sees a people emerge that crosses barriers, unites opposites, proclaims hope where there was only darkness. On nights when longing for the Master weighs heavy, the disciples gather at the table. They recall the words spoken by the sea, Jesus' gaze at the broken bread, the meaningful silence as he washed their feet. Luke listens to each account, each memory, and understands. The gospel is not just history, it is presence. He breathes deeply, senses the fragrance of the promise, and realizes that what began in a forgotten Galilean village has already transformed kings and shepherds, sages and children, oppressors and oppressed. The good news cannot be contained. Night falls heavily over Rome. The fire of torches casts shadows on stone walls, and the cold cuts the skin of those walking the narrow alleys, carrying in their hands only a name, Jesus. Luke beholds the grandeur and decay of the city, the luxury of palaces and the despair of slaves, the indifference of the rich and the hunger of the poor. But there, in the heart of the world's most powerful empire, the Nazarene's message finds shelter in underground homes, where brothers share bread and hope, where voices whisper hymns to avoid alerting the guards, where every act of compassion defies the cruel logic of oppression. Luke narrates with reverence the courage of the martyrs, who even before beasts, lashes and fire, do not deny the name of the risen one. He sees women, once invisible, now leading, teaching, supporting widows and orphans. Humble men, fishermen, former tax collectors become fearless preachers. In their eyes burns a certainty no sword can destroy. Paul, in chains, dictates letters to young communities, consoles, corrects, dreams of the day. Every tongue will confess that name. Peter, with white hair and weary steps, walks among the brothers, sustaining fragile hearts with simple words. repeating the Master's parables with tears in his eyes. Time condenses. A new kind of people emerges, willing to love even enemies, to forgive under insult, to share their little with the stranger, the sick, the rejected. Luke witnesses acts of generosity that change destinies. Coins left at the doorstep of the poor, meals shared with strangers, silent prayers for persecutors. Faith becomes an inextinguishable flame, igniting hope in the darkest alleys of the city. Yet pain lurks at every turn. Prisons crowded with men and women, orphaned children awaiting parents who will never return, mothers hiding their children from the soldiers' nightly raids. Luke collects each story, aware that every tear, every sacrifice is a living part of the gospel he vowed to narrate. He recalls Jesus' words, "In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world." And in those words, he finds the reason to press on. The time of the apostles wanes like the light of the candle flickering in Luke's room. He watches Paul being led to his final trial, sees Peter walking toward the cross upside down, remembers James, John, Andrew, all scattered to the four corners, all carrying forward the torch of hope. The cost is high, the path narrow, but each life offered sows seeds that will bloom through centuries of faith. Luke then looks back and contemplates the golden thread tying each episode together. The angel announcing to Mary, the birth in the stable, the baptism in the Jordan, the calmed storm, the multiplied bread, the eyes of the blind opening to light, the disciples' despair before the cross, the surprise of the empty tomb, the joy of the resurrection, the fire of Pentecost burning fear and turning fishermen into prophets. Each scene, each miracle, each parable is a flame, and together they illuminate the map of human history. As he writes, Luke feels he is no longer alone. Voices from the past seem to fill the room. Peter's laughter recounting a stumble, Magdalene's tears describing the tomb's emptiness, the warmth of John's embrace in the apostles' final days. Luke knows he is recording not just words, but transformed lives, redeemed destinies, pains turned into music. Each line written is an invitation for others to enter this living story, to not only hear but feel, live, experience the power of the one who broke the chains of death. He recalls Jesus' first encounters, the exchanged glances, the outstretched hands, the voice calling by name. He remembers the disciples' fears, the doubts that gnawed at faith, the moments when all seemed lost. And then he recalls the moment everything changed, the empty cross, the abandoned shroud, the brilliance of that Sunday morning. Luke understands that no night is so dark it can extinguish the sun that rose that day. No pain is so deep it can resist the touch of the one who makes all things new. Time passes, the quill glides over the papyrus, the candles burn low. Outside, Rome sleeps, but within Luke's room, the gospel lives. He knows each word written there will cross centuries, change destinies, rekindle hope in deserts of despair. And so, to the sound of his own breath, Luke completes another passage, aware that the story still pulses, that the miracle is not confined to the past. Luke's gospel is more than a recount. It is a living seed cast into the soil of time. One last time, Luke gazes at the flame dancing in the dim light, listens to the wind sweeping Rome's streets like a whisper of eternity. He closes his eyes and feels, deep in his chest, the echo of all the voices he narrated. Mary and her, "Let it be done to me according to your word." Peter and his tears of redemption. Magdalene, so human and so strong. Paul, overcome and transformed by the light. The gospel is no longer just a story. It is the world's breath, the bridge between heaven and earth, the irresistible call that spans generations. Every recorded pain, every preserved laugh, every hope whispered in nights of fear, all live there, pulsing in the lines he dared to write. As the candle goes out and the room plunges into silence, Luke understands that his mission does not end with the final period. The gospel is infinite. It will live on in the eyes of those who love, in the gestures of those who forgive, in the hands that share bread, in the feet that cross borders to proclaim love. The world changed forever, not by force, but by compassion, not by weapons, but by hope, not by kings, but by a risen carpenter. This is the truth Luke leaves to the world. The impossible is not an illusion, but a promise. May all who hear his story remember to never give up, never yield to fear, never close their hearts to grace. For there is a light no time can extinguish, a name no mouth can silence, a hope that is reborn whenever someone believes. And if you've come this far, if you've heard this story with an open heart, join this chain of faith. Subscribe, share, comment, be part of this marathon of hope, for the gospel continues to be written now in you, the end.